And ride with me in my foul life.
What's up, Podcast World? Chad back at you. Another episode of the Foul Life Podcast. Today's episode, again, is brought to you by our friends at Gerber Gear. Check them out. Stay sharp, America. Everywhere we go, we got an axe or shears or a saw, a folding knife, a straight blade knife. We have to have our knives on us. We're Americans. We like to cut things up. We like to eat the meat that we harvest. We're hunters and gatherers and providers. So Gerber supports the lifestyle of the American hunter, the American conservationist, the American fisher, and you can find any folding blade or straight blade or any of the aforementioned products that I just talked about on their website or in any retail outlet across the country. Thank you, Gerber, so much. Today's episode of the Foul Life Podcast is also brought to you by our friends out of the great state of Wyoming, Hi-Vis Sights, light pipe technology. They make myself, our crew here at the Foul Life and Banded, better shotgunners, better pistol shooters, handgun shooters, defense shooters, defending our homes, our families, or hunting ducks and geese or pheasant or quail or chuckers. We love what they do for our vision, getting on target, staying on target, transitioning from our first target to our second to our third target, maybe your fourth or fifth if you're hunting chuckers in the mountains of Idaho or Nevada. But Hi-Vis has what you need for your Benelli or any of the other shotgun manufacturers out there, your pistols. My guest today is product designer and sight guru. This man knows it all when it comes to Hi-Vis. Trevor, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good. You look good, man. You got my haircut going on. You got the beard going on. Yep. You got a bunch of dead ducks and geese behind you.
Yep, absolutely.
So the word on the streets is that you not only hunt these birds, but you mount them all too. These are your creations I'm looking at.
I do. Yeah. It started out as a you probably know as well as I do. Anybody that has taken anything to it, not to say anything about those taxidermists out there, but they're busy. Taxidermists are busy. They stack up work, and it takes them a while to get it back to you.
Yeah, you get your deposit into them, and then 2 years later, the deposit's been spent, and you still don't have anything to show for it.
Exactly. So I got a little too anxious to get some of my mounts back and just started doing it myself.
Taught yourself?
Yep.
I like it.
Which is can be a bad thing, because I got about, you can't see them all behind me, but I got about 30 some behind me, and I got more around the house. So it ends up being two or three of every species,
So do you have some currently in the works in the garage right now?
I do actually. I got a couple. I got a pair of redhead drakes, really prime. Actually, probably the two nicest drakes I've ever shot that I got to mount.
And is it safe to say that mounting a duck and making it come to life and be very realistic is more difficult than doing that to, let's say, a deer or an elk? Seems to me like that big hide, you fit it over the mold and you get the eyes. I mean, I know there's talent in the nostrils and the painting and the eyeballs and making it all come together, but ducks seem like they would be so meticulous.
I started doing ducks first. That was the first thing I started doing. I do, big game and a lot of other small game now. Of course, anything I do for myself or any of my taxidermy, I mount myself. There's probably a couple birds back here that I had mounted right before I started. But so I might say maybe there's, I use reference photos more on big game than I do on ducks. But I would say that, with ducks, since it's always the whole animal pretty much, there's a lot of detail to the shape of the form, whether they're flying or sitting, and you're always going back for several days after you get the mount put together. You're always going back and making adjustments, preening feathers, and I mean you can just keep adjusting things really, for 3-4 weeks until it starts to dry. So there's definitely a lot of detail, and the beauty is it doesn't all get done the first day or right when you make the mount. You can go back and adjust things and really make it lifelike. And I'm not an expert, but I mean, it's good. It's it's a learning experience. I mean, I probably mounted, I don't know, 250 ducks and geese, stuff like that.
So are you commercial, or you just do it for buddies, or what do you do?
Yeah, I do it for friends. Once anybody finds out you can do something they can't. Of course they want to see if you can do it for them. So yeah, I do a little bit of big game. Of course, all my kids, I got to mount all their stuff too. So
I like it, dude. How many have you thrown away once you started them and didn't see something you liked, or didn't?
None.
You've never thrown one away.
Nope. The very first bird I did, I don't think I have anymore, and it was pretty bad. I made a couple mistakes in skinning it, but I started with, it was a Drake shoveler, or I mean a hen shoveler that I started with first bird, and I thought, well, I'll just mount this. It's no big deal if it doesn't go well. After I got about the first 5 birds done, I said, I think I'm done. I don't think I'm going to do anymore. So, and of course, that turned out not to be true. So, taxidermy is pretty forgiving. I have never attempted to mount anything I couldn't repair, to the point where with a duck, you can replace a whole wing. It's really not that big a deal, honestly. And I don't have as many now, but I used to keep several birds, common stuff, mallard, drake, or whatever in the freezer, just for parts. If you shoot a whole speculum off of a duck and you want to mount them, we can replace that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, really. You can fix a lot of stuff.
And what is your current role at Hi-Vis?
Well, boy, that's a good question. So, when I started, I was more or less customer service, and of course, trade shows and the site testing and the catalog. I've always been involved with that, but I've moved along a lot. I still do a lot of those things or oversee them, but I've moved really heavily into the OEM side. So dealing with all our OEM customers, and both the site development and testing and new product development is probably really where all my focus is now.
So how do you go from a customer service position to product design? Is it because of your know-how and your wherewithal of knowing the brand and being there for so many years that you developed insight in what should go into the sites? Or have you always had, you're a taxidermist, and that's why I transitioned into this, is you have design, you have artistic value in what you do. Your mind thinks like that. Did you always have the ability to design a site that like what you're doing now?
Well, so my background prior to working here is I was an automotive technician for years. I was also, almost everybody in my family is a machinist. So I actually grew up in a machine shop machining. And I'm a infantry vet. And I'm a gun nut. That is really probably the bigger part of it. So I've been reloading since I started reloading and shooting when I was 16, and have been interested in both. I wouldn't go as far as to call myself a gunsmith. I just call myself a hobbyist. It's safer that way. Then I don't get in trouble. That way nobody can claim I was a gunsmith. But I've been, building, some rifles and repairing guns and doing stock work and stuff and all this, for years and years. So when I came to the company, me and our engineer Brad, we are both, and I hate to sometimes make claims about yourself, but I am certainly probably the most gun knowledgeable person in the company. Rick Moore, our old VP, who's a excellent shotgun instructor and truly a gun person. He even admitted on a couple times that I best him in all categories of firearms. So I guess it's really that. Now with that, I would also say, both from Rick, a couple of our engineers, Brad, Kent, former engineer, I have learned a tremendous amount about the gun industry, guns, sights, since I've been here. I've been here 14 years, come January. So I think it's really all of that, that I was always interested in the manufacturing side of it. have an interest in, say problem solving or trying to make things better, or test them or develop them and really prove them out.
What is I want to get into the nuts and bolts of the sight and the optics of shotgunning. What is the no-brainer things that you would tell somebody if you're standing in a Hi-Vis booth at, let's say, National Wild Turkey Convention, and there's a lot of duck hunters coming through, a lot of sporting clay enthusiasts, turkey hunters. What are the no-brainers, Trevor, like what they need to know about what they're going to get with an aftermarket light pipe technology sight from Hi-Vis?
Well, I was a very novice shotgunner when I came to the company, and I've increased in my shotgunning skill and really fundamentals of shotgunning a tremendous amount since I've been here. And it really kind of put me, I was an avid waterfowler and shotgunner before I started here, but I wasn't very successful at it. I wasn't a very good shooter. So I've gained a lot of knowledge in that area, and it kind of has put me on kind of a quest to help people be better shotgun shooters, especially waterfowlers, since I do that and really enjoy it. So I would say that, with our sights, and I talk to people about a lot of simple things in shotgunning, and most of those are shotgun fundamentals, like pattern your gun. That's important. You can't be successful if your gun doesn't pattern properly for you the way it's fit. And then sometimes you just lose your train of thought.
No, you're good.
So, fundamentally, when people call or I talk to them and they're interested in our site, a lot of times they want it to make them a better shooter, but a lot of times they want it because they have a fundamental issue, like a pattern issue. So, I encourage people to pattern their shotguns, practice their mount, but really at the end of the day, everybody needs to know where that muzzle is in relationship to the target. And that's where our sight is going to always help you in low light, in early morning, afternoon, but even in the middle of the day, especially when you're doing, either hunting, either waterfowl, upland birds, whatever. But when you're not mounted on the shotgun, that sight's going to be a tremendous help to help you, your subconscious after a short time is going to recognize that fiber optic color. And even before you mount the gun, while you're in your swing, when the gun's moving up, your eye's going to locate that bead and know where the end of the muzzle is. And it's just going to make you even good shooters, it's going to make them a faster. It's going to make them acquire the target and make a better shot on it.
So the gun's leaning up against the wall in the blind, where the muzzle is at all times. That's a safety deal right there of being able to identify that green or that red or that orange or that yellow Hi-Vis sight. Now the birds start working, hand goes onto the forearm, you start to stand up as the take-em shot's being called. Now your eye easily transitions back to that sight, finding the end of that muzzle, and it follows that sight all the way to the shouldering, to the head down on the cheek, to mounting the gun, to getting the head down on the cheek pad, to looking down the rib. Now the sight's on. Now you've already acquired it. Now that's what you mean by faster, right? Boom, it's there. Now it's just a matter of knowing your lead and your swing, depending on which direction the birds are coming overhead at you, going away from you, left to right, right to left. Are they back flapping over the decoys where you might not have to lead them as much or any at all? The whole experience with the sight is from when the gun's leaning up against the wall to when the trigger's pulled and it's put back on safety and put down in a safe position on the wall, and everybody can, identify where that muzzle is again.
Absolutely. Your subconscious will get so used to seeing that color, and it'll be so prominent that it I don't even know if you could put a percentage. It could be 20, 30, 40% reduction in time for you to do the whole motion of beginning to mount, swing, acquire the sight, lead the target, pull the trigger. I mean, it's a tremendous help, and especially in low light, but not just in low light. And we talk to a lot of customers who are, say, 50 or older, and they're getting older. My eyesight's not so good. And there's no doubt that it's going to be a benefit to them. But we should not underplay that this is a benefit to all shooters of all ages. especially beginning shooters.
Well, if I'm 23 and I've been shooting a shotgun since I was 14 and I'm pretty proficient with it, I'm duck hunting on my own all the time. I love bluebird skies with wind. That's the ultimate duck day, in my opinion. Cold temperatures, I have to be hunting in the sunshine. I don't like overcast or low ceilings or rainy or snowy or sleet day. I'm not saying you won't get them, but to see ducks and geese do what they're intended to do, I think you need sunshine, in my opinion. So I know there's arguments around that, but my point is, why a sight if I have all my vision, if I don't have a low light condition or any overcast or low ceilings? I am very safe with my gun. I hunt with one other person. I know where my muzzle is at all times. I've never have accidents. Why a sight? Why a Hi-Vis?
Again, I'm going to go back to it's kind of a subconscious thing that you will get trained and used to it. And people will change colors, a red, green, orange, depending on, personal preference and possibly background, target color, that type of thing. But it's a distinction between. So if you're, not only does the sight work good in overcast and low light and, snowy conditions, it still lights up beautifully, especially in natural light. But in sunny conditions, it's going to be brighter, but it's going to be a distinction. You're even with a glare shooting into the sun, I'm sure you've probably experienced this. You're still going to see, and your mind gets used to, your shooting eye to that dot to the target. So I think you're not gonna lose it with glare and odd angles. It's really a benefit no matter how. The only possible downside is on a really bright day, it might almost be too bright sometimes, but that's not really a big consequence.
Do you think that, take the subconscious out of it, just the visual part of the sight helps you on a sunny day?
I think so, because I think it's going to be you're going to be looking at something that is different from both the target, the background. It's going to be very distinct. It's going to be very bright. So again, the key is that your eye is not hunting around, because, as well as anybody, that it has to be a fluid motion, especially when you're shooting a moving target like a bird. It has to be a fluid motion. If you stop or pause to try to hunt around for the end of the muzzle, you're probably going to miss the shot or the opportunity for the shot. So with a fiber optic sight up there, you're going to see it no matter what. It's going to be very easy to both see that in your peripheral vision, and then you can focus on the target, which is what you need to do.
Okay, so let's get in to the nuts and bolts of, let's talk about options. I'm a duck hunter 100%. I'm not just talking about me personally. I'm just saying I'm a customer that walks up to you. I like to hunt ducks and geese. I hunt out of a boat, but I also hunt dry fields. So I'm over water and dry land. I shoot a 12 gauge Benelli. What would you recommend right now in 2020 for a waterfowl hunter, knowing that you have, I've utilized, and I'm just talking like, before I purchased this, I would assume that you guys have more options than just one site for a waterfowl hunter. Myself personally, I've shot them all. I know what my favorites are and what my go-tos are, but what would you talk about in product design? How does that end consumer go about picking the right site? What do you recommend, Trevor? And do they get a couple different ones to switch on and off? Tell me how that buying experience should go for a duck hunter.
Well, we have a fairly large selection of shotgun sites, which can be both a blessing and a curse. There's a lot of options. I try to simplify it for the customer if I can. At the end of the day, you can't go wrong with any one you pick. So generically, we have two types of sights. We have a magnetic sight, which, as you would assume, magnetically attaches to the rib right behind your factory bead, very easy to install. And then we have screw attached sights that are a more permanent attachment, and you'd remove your factory bead and they'll thread in place of it. Generally, with waterfowl hunters, since they're going to be, and sometimes upland bird hunters suffer the same problem, but they're going to be in potentially in a blind, whether it's a boat, or a built blind or a layout blind, where they may be contacting the muzzle with something, brush or that type of thing. So generally, I will try to steer them towards a screw attached sight, a little more permanent, so they're not going to lose it, and it's going to stay on there. So with that, again, they could use any of them. The difference in our screw attached sights, really starts with both their size and the options, whether they have interchangeable colors, different sizes, that type of choices. But by default, I would always steer them to our comp sight. The comp sight was our first OEM screw attached sight that Browning started using almost 24 years ago. I consider that our flagship product. It has red, green, and white inserts. They come in different diameters. So if your preference is a fine bead, and I think shooters that put on a fiber optic generally migrate to a smaller bead the more they use it. At first they want a big bold dot, but then I think generally, I know I've done this, and a lot of people, a lot of customers I talk to they'll start migrating down to a smaller bead because they don't need it to be as big and bold, and then the smaller it is, it doesn't obscure the target at distance as easy.
I talked to
There
Phil.
are waterfowlers that use magnetic sights, but occasionally, just from the rough use, magnetic sight is removable, so they'll lose them. But for upland shooters, magnetic sights are a normal choice. They can get them a lot of times in the area they're hunting, attach them to their gun with no work, no tools at all.
I just took a note because I was writing down to touch on this. I wanted to let you finish. I talked to Mr. Phil, and that was my words verbatim. Pretty much was I started out with the Bird Buster, and then the Magna Hunter, and I was always like, bigger is better, longer is better, the circumference I need it. And then when the comp sight gets on my gun, I'm like, man, I like this. You touched on it before. I'm in and out of floating gun cases a lot. The Magna Hunter is an awesome target, or the Bird Buster is an awesome sight, and can come on and off of your shotgun with magnetic ease, but it tends to pull off sometimes if you're not careful, and it gets caught up on fabric in a gun case or a gun safe or whatever. So it's always a good idea to keep that travel case handy and take it off after the hunt, put it in there, and then reapply it, in my opinion. I still love those sights, but why? Why do we mature towards the smaller bead when you already said when we start to get into our 50s, I'm in my mid 40s, I don't feel like I'm losing my eyesight yet, but I'm going to a smaller. It should be the opposite. Like if you're losing your eyesight, you should want a magnetic sight or something that's illuminated with that light pipe technology to be bigger. But now you're telling me that as we shoot more and experience these sights more, that we migrate to a smaller sight. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a couple of reasons. I think, I'd say a quality of shotgunning fundamentals thing for starters. If people if they're committed to shotgunning for whatever reason, whether it's target shooting or bird hunting or whatever, they should be committed to the art of it and improving their fundamentals. So if you have a good shotgun mount, and we all get lazy on occasion on a shot or whatever, and especially waterfowl hunters, because we have to shoot, standing, sitting, laying down at all types of angles. So we really have to watch our fundamentals, I think. But if your fundamentals are good, then you don't need as bold of a reference to the muzzle is the way I would say it. And that, again, the fiber optic is such a contrast to anything you're seeing in your sight picture that you want it smaller so that it's not as imposing on the target. And especially, waterfowlers can be in the same position as a sporting clays shooter. We can have a driven target or a crossing target or any number of situations where they're at distance, say 35, 40 yards. And it's just, I think the more you use it, you want it to be a little less imposing, and you don't need it to be as bold.
The more you use it.
I think so. Yeah, at first, I think what you're saying is exactly the perception everybody wants, is that it can't be big enough, it can't be bright enough. But I think the more you use it, and the more comfortable you get with it, not only does I think it helps your fundamentals be better, because you got such a distinct line of sight when you use a fiber optic sight. So I think it helps your mount. I think it helps your fundamentals, and it definitely makes you more successful. But I think the more you use it, the less, and it's not the brightness or intensity, it's the diameter that you want it to be a little less imposing on the target for size. That seems to be normal.
Does it go the same way in all instances of the sights as far as sporting clay, plinking around, home defense? Do people start to migrate that way traditionally in all senses of the sight use?
Maybe in a general way, but I think where the, wanting to migrate to somewhat smaller diameter, and like I say, I maybe we didn't emphasize it, but it's not the intensity that we're decreasing. It's just the diameter. I think for me at least, it really has to do with distance of target. If you're shooting clays are not that big. It's not, a clay is a lot smaller than a goose at 25 yards. Obviously, even though, we should be, shooting heads and not bodies, but still, it's a small target. So it's that obscuring the target type of thing. Where with, say, home defense, it really might kind of be the opposite. We might be talking extreme low light conditions, where the bigger the fiber and the more surface area that's on the fiber, so the longer it is, the bigger diameter, the brighter it will be with the available light. So, and we make a lot of products that vary greatly in both their length, the diameter, the surface area, the brightness of the sight, and they certainly have specific uses that are favored.
And when you go back to the hunting scenario of the sight, Trevor, when you start talking about the combinations of color now, when I talked to Phil, he said, it's pretty much a preference. Do you see it that way as being, and you hunt way more waterfowl than Mr. Phil does. You hunt as much as I do. Do you find yourself gravitating towards one color always if you're hunting? And like what Mr. Phil said, if you're hunting in a backdrop that's got a bunch of trees and green in it, do you go to a red to differentiate your backdrop to your sight and the end of your muzzle? Or are you just stuck on one color and that's what you're comfortable with and you can get what you need out of a Hi-Vis product with the one color?
Well, you are right that ultimately it comes down to personal preference. But there are, if we're early season waterfowling where it's really green, early teal season, something like that, or down south, I hunt, in Colorado. So, by the time we get into waterfowl season, there's not a lot of green around. So it's not an issue. But if we were hunting, in Texas, Louisiana, something like that, early season, it might be a real issue. But generically, outside of personal preference or background color, trying to distinguish a target, the human eye has a spectrum of visible light that we can see, and the frequency of visible light the human eye can see the best in all light conditions is right in, we would call it green, and kind of a fluorescent green, fluorescent yellow area, about like 520 nanometer, 530 nanometer. That is the color the eye sees the best. So there's a good argument to be made that green is going to be normally your best choice. But I do use red on occasion. I'm kind of partial green, and then for some sites we have orange, and I do like orange, and I'll use orange on occasion. But if you just left green in, I think it'd be a rare circumstance. Maybe sporting clay shooters, especially ones that shoot in the trees, might have a lot more difficulty with it.
Why would you use orange and when?
Well, I like orange because it looks like fall. And to me, fall means getting out in the woods, whether it's waterfowling or
have
big
you
game
been
hunting or
carving
whatever.
A bunch of pumpkins, Trevor?
Yeah, exactly. Orange might be my favorite optics, I have to admit. But orange is closer to green in the spectrum of light. So red is a fairly high frequency color, and it's a little more difficult. It's way more difficult for the eye to perceive red than people might think if they don't know. Orange is much closer to green. So if we offer orange for a sight, the green and orange would always be my choices, my first choices to alternate between if I need a different color. And we make, it might be about half and half. Half of our shotgun sights have orange available, half don't. But I mean, red's not a bad choice. It's not that you can't see it. It's just green is always going to be the brightest color.
Why not purple? Why not chartreuse? Why not pearl blue, aqua blue? Why don't you give the Crayola color crayons assortment to the American public or the world public that nobody, you know, everybody has their preference in colors? Why are the colors that are the green, the orange, the red, the yellow, why are those the ones that you make available through Hi-Vis?
That's a great question. So what we generically call our sights fiber optic, and so do most of the other companies. Fiber optic is not necessarily a material. It's more of a property. So it's the ability of the fiber to, you know, both kind of trap and direct light to the end of the fiber. So the fibers that we provide with our sights, we actually injection mold them. And that allows us to do some very unique things. Allows us to make different shapes, extremely odd shapes, like in our Tri-Vis sight, where the rear sight has two triangles. That is actually a one-piece light pipe molded almost in a circle. So it allows us to, you know, get some really unique features that gather a lot of light and give you some different shapes and things that you can aid you in aiming. Now, with that, we have tried other colors, and some of them, at least in our material and the way we do it, do not transmit light. So we've tried, one of the colors we've tried in the past is blue. And I've not completely given up on it, because blue is generally one of the colors that people that are, and I guess I'll say this generically, colorblind can normally see. So I'm still wanting to try to do a blue, but we did a blue in the past and it just didn't it just didn't transmit light. Now we have done pink in the past, kind of an orange red, some other colors, but generally I think that, you know, between green, orange, and red, you've probably covered most any need of the customer. They may have a preference for another color just because they like it, but I don't know that there'd be a benefit to it.
Is there ever going to be such thing as a custom shop with your ability to machine and direct, you know, to create this carbon fiber, or the carbon and the light pipe technology? Would you guys ever have a custom shop for somebody to come and test to see what their eye draws to? Or is it always going to be the consensus of, here's our offering and this is what's going to wrap in most of the people?
Do you mean like color or the type of fiber or application? Yeah. Or
I would say mainly the type of fiber and the color, like all of that, to where they could come in and customize their site. Application, I think you guys have that covered, but I think that there might be more people opt to say, well, what I'm not saying that there ever would, but if there was a chance that somebody would want something different, they might be like, well, I don't want a green sight. I wanted this color sight. Like, I need purple, right? Like, I don't know, would there ever be that opportunity, or is it something to where it would, because like when somebody comes to my duck call shop, they want a custom call. We can engrave their logo on it. We can change the color of the acrylic real quick. Is it that simple for a Hi-Vis manufacturing process?
If we could create a color that a customer wanted, and probably not an individual customer, because from the standpoint of that we mold these, we have to mold thousands at a time. But it's really more of a difficulty of getting the right combination. And the way we make our fibers, being proprietary, of course, there are certain colors or color spectrums that don't transmit light well. So we're kind of stuck with the physics of it on that end. But as far as custom stuff, I'd say the stuff we get the most call for are different applications, especially handguns, and then different heights or that type of thing. I don't know that we'll ever get to that, but possibly. But as far as product development, features, and things we do, we definitely listen to customers, and we have a lot of both sites and features that are implementations of not necessarily just a single input, but many many different areas of input, like our pro staff, OEM companies, customer reply. So we definitely listen to the customer base and try to react to that.
And what application of installation, is there anything intimidating about any of this to a guy that might, or a guy or a girl that might not have any gunsmith knowledge, not very handy like myself? People accuse me of not being a very handy feller, right, Trevor? They don't think I'm very handy. Is there any intimidation factor to the swap out process? Obviously, the magnetic sight's pretty self-explanatory, but there is the process of making sure that you pull one of the sights out, replace it with a different color. Talk to a little bit about the installation part of it.
Yeah, I think there is an intimidation factor. And, we do often talk in the company that the difficulty with our product is really education. There's a lot of choices. Matter of fact, before I came to the company, I actually went down to my local Sportsman's Warehouse and looked for a shotgun bead because I was having trouble seeing the bead early morning waterfowling. And I'll be honest, I looked at a lot of fiber optic type sites, ours and competitors, and I was very confused, and I left without one that day because of it. I didn't know what I needed. So I've tried to keep that a focus over the years that I've been here, and I try to convey as much as we can to both dealers, distributors, and then just to the customer themselves, and try to educate them to make the right choice. We always encourage them to call us. We're happy to talk with them, help them make a site selection. But we also try to continually make, both through our partners like you, you're helping us with that education, every time you shoot or every time you do a podcast or a video or a show. But we also like to put a lot of content on our website too, and show people how to use the sites, how to change them, how to install them. It's really not that difficult, even if you're not a handy person. I think most people can do it. But we've really tried to make a commitment to try to help people and educate them and take the intimidation factor out of it.
When you talk about the actual, how we started this, shotgunning as a whole, in a rifle, there's a lot of these courses out there of the breathing and the ballistics and the windage and the scopes and the crosshairs and the yardage. And I mean, this long range shooting has taken a whole new life in the last 7, 8, maybe decade, right? Military's been doing it for years. Shotgunning, Tom Knapps, the Bradleys, the guys that were the trick shooters. There's been schools of thought out there on that. There's been instruction out there. You can go to an instructional course for shotgunning just like you can at the pro shop for golf or down out on the driving range or whatever. What is it about the mechanics of shotgunning that go along with the overall success of your waterfowl hunt, Trevor? Meaning, do you need to be practicing every day in the off season? Is it something that's like riding the bike, the mechanics and the actual application of getting that gun, becoming one with that gun, making it a part of your body, understanding vision and shooting with both eyes open, and you got to add in all the safety stuff for eyes and hearing and all of that. I get that, but I told Mr. Phil, I don't practice that much. And when I do go onto the sporting clay range, I suck. And I'm talking 68 to 74 maybe. Don't take it too serious. Don't take it too serious. My adrenaline doesn't get going. My hunt IQ doesn't get going. I enjoy it. I love the camaraderie of it. But then when I get into a hunt situation and a spec does this or a spec does that and a sprig does this and a mallard drake does that, I feel so comfortable with my muscle memory and my shotgunning skills, and I've never been educated on it. I've been educated in handgun, and I feel way more proficient with a handgun because of my instruction through John Shaw and his son Houston at Shaw Shooting. I don't know if you know those guys, but they're pretty freaking amazing in Idaho. But shotgunning has always come to me as more of an athletic form of shooting, to where you don't sit in the scope for a long time. It's like grab it, swing it, boom, keep it swinging, breathing, all of that. It's almost like catching a football pass or hitting a baseball to me. A very fluent, athletic, designed way of shooting a gun. Way more so than pistols, where you're sitting there trying to aim at a target. And I'm not saying that there aren't activities or events that you can do like 3-gun and everything, but shotgunning in the hunting scenario just seems so athletic to me. Does that make sense to you? And why does it come natural to some and others struggle with it and struggle with it? Do they need to go get instruction, or is it something that just repetition is going to fix that?
I agree with that.
I know I said a lot, but I'm trying to get it out there that shotgunning to me is like, it's so natural to me, it feels like. But maybe it's because I do it so much, but I only do it for 3 to 4 months out of the year, really.
Right. Well, no, you hit on a lot of very important things. And you're right that shotgunning, and when we say shotgunning, we should say whether it's pre-mounted or low mount type situation, we're talking about shooting moving targets. Not using it with a sight set like for deer hunting or something that's different. But you're right. It is a hand-eye coordination, just like hitting a baseball. Exactly. But with that, people who are good hitters, some of them are naturally good. Some of them really have to work to maintain their level of skill. But there's no doubt that whether they do it or maintain it naturally, there are fundamentals to it. And with shotgunning, I would say, first off, is your mount. You want to have a shotgun that's fit properly and that your mount is good, that the gun comes to you. It comes to your shoulder and your cheek at the same time. You're not contorting yourself or bringing yourself to the gun. Also, you should pattern it because guns don't fit people the same. I'm 5'9", a 6'4" guy that's 300 pounds. He's going to need a different stock adjustment than I will. Guns on the shelf are made for your average guy. You and I might fall more into that category of average people. And then keep your head down on stock and follow through. I think really those, so if your gun's patterned, if you have a decent mount, you keep your head down and you follow through, probably you're going to be successful. Should people seek instruction for that? If they feel like they would like to, absolutely. I would encourage anyone to seek instruction because I don't think, there are certainly people that are true naturals. But shotgunning is a depreciable skill like any shooting. But I agree with you that it may not go away in the same manner that other skills would be, like typing. If you don't type for 10 years, your speed isn't going to be there. But you could ride a bicycle still. Now you're going to ride a bicycle a little. Matter of fact, I've been on bikes here lately and without riding them regularly for a while. And it takes a mile to get going on a bike. I think for us, wing shooting, I know I definitely am not as good in the beginning, but I don't know if you're this way, but I am. That if I have too much time to analyze a shot is usually when I mess it up. When I have fast crossers come in, or driven birds or something, and I got to get on them quick. I got to do it in one fluid motion like we should, get the gun up, swing, track that bird, boom, shoot him. I don't have time to think about what the distance is or what kind of lead I should put on. I'm usually more successful. So I might be a better natural shot than I am a fundamental shot. Yeah.
The worst thing I can do on a sporting clay event is go up there and have them give me the test run, I want to see one.
Yep.
Every time I do that, I just play mind tricks and head games on myself until it's my turn to shoot. If I just go up there and go pull and I just spot it like it's a duck that comes out, that come into my sight picture, I'm just boom. And I still miss once, more often than not, but I don't think about it. I am such an instinctual shooter of when I see ducks doing what they're doing, I'm always visualizing. Visualizing is a huge part of success in anything that we do in life. Hitting a baseball, you have to visualize. The ball might be on the outer half of the plate. I'm gonna let it get deep. I'm gonna hit it to the opposite field. I'm visualizing it. In ducks, I'm visualizing. All right, the wind's doing this. My keel hole here is here. I think the mallards are going to approach and finish right here. It might be 7 or 8 of them. I think after the first shots fired, they're going to do this. And I prepare my mind and my body and my muscle memory to do just that, of just like, there they are, boom, he pulls, boom. And I feel so fluent when I'm doing that. And I told Mr. Phil that a lot of it has to do with things that we take for granted. Like, it's not that it's not that we've become an expert shotgun shooter. It's that we've learned to trust our instincts and our vision. I couldn't go out and do what the late Tom Knapp would do and throw 9 in the air and hit them all. I'm not saying that I'm a trick shotist, but I can rely on my instincts and be able to grab that gun and whoom, just like grabbing that bike and pedal, just like grabbing that baseball bat and seeing the ball and hit the ball where it's pitched. I've learned all that of how to trust my muscle memory, how to trust the way my mind is thinking. And it's when you overthink, but what goes into that with the product we're talking about today, Trevor, is that when you grab that gun and you can freaking go straight to that bead so easily, it's almost like the ball is in the fattest part of the plate, and you're going to hit it with the fattest part of the bat every single time. And that's the difference between shooting a regular sight as opposed to the light pipe that Hi-Vis is producing. When I pick up my gun, I am whoom, whoom, and it's over. Like, I'll shoot 3 times and kill 3 ducks, or maybe 2 for 3. I'm not going to cripple them. I am going to head shoot them, and I'm going to dispatch them quick. Not every time. Things happen. But that's how proficient I've wanted to become and how I feel I'm becoming because of the system. I call it a system, like I told Mr. Phil. The gun, the ammo, the choke tube, and the sight. That's my system. Okay, I brag about the system we shoot because it is so consistent. And the success, the proof's in the pudding. I see it happen every time that I'm hunting. And I think that people start to lean on things like, I got to think about this too much. No, go do it without thinking. Pick up your sight, put it on the target. And where I'm transitioning into this, Trevor, is now it's time to transition from that first goose. I always tell people, you pick one and you shoot at him until he's dead. You don't want to shoot at it and then just transition to a second target where you might have crippled that one, or you missed him completely and he's getting away, but he's still the closest one. Get him dead and then move on ethically and safety in your shooting zone. You know, wherever you're at in the blind, shoot your lane. But now it's going from that one that's falling to another live one that might be going straight up in the air. It might be trying to get away. It might be trying to get out of there left to right. Now you got to be like, okay, now what? So what? My point is, now here we are right back, finding that muzzle on target, and then letting your instincts take over. So now into transitioning from target 1 to target 2 and potentially target 3. Is it the same process? Because the last thing you want to do is muscle up and get tight and can't swing and can't be fluid. And that's where that fluidity and that muscle memory comes in, is boom, he's done. Now I'm on to the next bird. And now my visualization is giving me, I know where this bird's going to be already because I've already visualized this in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this is true with me, and it might be true with you too. I love to shoot a shotgun. I'll shoot targets, I'll shoot upland birds, ducks, whatever. But I am truly a waterfowl hunter. So to be honest, when I'm on a sporting clays range or on a clays range at all, the targets aren't as big a consequence to me as ducks are when I'm in a hunting situation. I am way more committed when I'm hunting. It's more serious to me. Maybe why I miss some clays more often than I do a lot of birds.
Taking an animal's life.
Yes. Yeah. And it's right. We're out there, on the clays, and this is not to downplay competition shooters at all, but for me and you, our game is the birds, more so than the clays. But like visualization, you said, anytime I have an opportunity to take more than one bird, whether they're decoying in, or they swing around behind you where you can't see them or something and come over you. You are visualizing, even if it's in milliseconds, okay, this bird may be first and then we'll see what happens after that. So I think the same thing applies. Sometimes you have an opportunity come up where you say, there are 3 birds right there. And you've already visualized your progression, and I usually start with the closest or lowest bird, so I can, with my muzzle or with my recoil, I can work my way up on them. But let's say you drop one bird, they flare, and you're just hunting for another bird. I think that the same benefit applies with the sight. Subconsciously, you're already seeing it in your peripheral vision. You already know where that bead is. Now you're just looking for a target. And once you acquire a target, you're going to know where your bead is. And you're going to be able to put it all together. I really can't see a day when I would want to take a sight like that off of any shotgun I shoot moving targets with. I don't see where it would only make my shooting less effective.
So now with you saying that, and we're at a retail location and we're in the market for a new shotgun, you said at the beginning of this podcast that part of your responsibility and position at HIVIZ is OEM. OEM, for those listening, is a certain gun manufacturer, handgun, shotgun, might come to HIVIZ and say, hey, we would like you to produce a fiber optic sight that we're going to put on all of our guns when they go to retail. We're going to build these guns in our factory. You're going to send all of these OEM sights to our factory. They're going to install them there, and it's going to be part of the gun. Is that safe to say that's what OEM is? These in consumers, they're at the gun counter. So some of these shotguns that they have an opportunity to buy might already have this sight on them.
Absolutely. Browning, Benelli, Mossberg, Savage. There's a host of shotgun companies, just for example, that use our sights. Not on every model, but specific models. Some of them on more options than others. But yes, there are. And then when you get into handguns and other types of offerings, rifles and things, same thing. Yep, there's a lot of companies that we work with.
So if that's the case, and it comes with one on it, is that one suffice? The OEM model, is that what we've talked about for the last hour?
Yeah. When it comes to shotguns, only on rare occasion have we made a dedicated sight for a company, like for Blaser, for example. We make dedicated sights for their F3s, for some of their competition grade guns, which is really proprietary to that gun. But that's the rare case. Most companies, since we have such an offering of shotgun sights and they're easily attached, that's another thing we should say about shotgun sights is that magnetic sights are sized by rib width. That's the only consideration you need to worry about is the width of the rib. Screw attached sights, for the most part, are made for ribbed shotguns. So if you got a shotgun with a rib and the bead is threaded, which is almost all shotguns, then you can use any of our sights. That's how universal they are. So you can't really make a bad choice. So with the OEM companies, they use, almost every one of our sights, our screw attached sights, have been used by an OEM. So, it's just, and they choose them for a variety of reasons. Browning has been using the comp sight, like I said, for about 24 years now. Benelli does also on the Rob Roberts, on the waterfowl editions. They use our comp sight too. And some of the other companies, use some other choices, but there's still going to be a great sight. It's going to be a great product for you. And it's definitely going to help you more than, let's say, just a silver or a plastic or brass bead.
It almost makes zero sense for any shotgun manufacturer to ever just produce a gun with just the black or silver bead on it anymore.
I would agree. And we're doing our best to try to fix that. Yeah, I agree though.
And then handgun, same thing, OEM, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of the major manufacturers. Smith, Ruger are probably maybe offer the most variety of our sights on handguns. But yes, there's plenty. There's enough that and this year has been a big increase in handgun sales. So we have plenty to keep us busy.
You're busy.
And then on our handguns, we offer fiber optic and then tritium fiber optic, which we call our H3, our Lightwave H3. So we also have, we brought it out earlier this year, a Lightwave H3 shotgun sight. So it's the comp sight, the H3 comp sight. So it's, of course, they're a fixed color. Anytime you sell a tritium sight, it has to be fully assembled and contained. And you can't take it apart or disassemble it. So it's a sight with a green fiber, but it also has a tritium element in it. So you're going to get 24-hour illumination with it. And, whether you're, turkey hunting, duck hunting, deer hunting, whatever, small game, upland stuff, early morning, late evening, you're going to be able to see that too. It's also a great defensive sight. How many people just use the same shotgun or, for this and that, and they have it in their home.
Do you carry extra magnetic sights on your duck hunts for somebody that might jump in the blind with you? And if so, when you start talking about those sights that you can put on in a hurry like that, I love that. That's one thing I love about the Magna Hunter and the Bird Buster is being able to get them in a hurry, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The rib size? What do we have to think about when it comes to the different gun manufacturers? Obviously, I love Benelli. I swear by Benelli. But let's say somebody else is shooting another gun that might start with a B or an M, like you've already mentioned, and they're cuss words to me, so I'm not allowed to say them according to my mom. Do we have to worry about that? Well, if I hand them one that I know has been on my Benelli before, will it automatically go on their gun?
So in the modern day we're in, let's say, rib widths, we've seen trends over the years with shotguns. If we go back 20 years, 25 years, especially for some more competition-minded people, sporting clays especially, you saw a lot of shorter barrels and wider ribs. Well, we've trended exactly the other way now with longer barrels and narrower ribs. 30 to 34-inch barrels on over and unders is not uncommon. With that, the ribs I would say, have less variation. So the Bird Buster is the best choice. The Bird Buster has 3 frame sizes, so it'll generically fit a 1/4-inch, 5/16, and 3/8 rib, or in metric, it'd be a 6 millimeter, 8 millimeter, and 10 millimeter. What that'll cover is like your Mossbergs are basically all 3/8. And then almost everybody else is going to be between the 1/4-inch and 5/16. And it really kind of varies. Benelli, for example, you take a Super Black Eagle or Super Sport or any of those. If they're a 20 gauge, they'll probably have a 6 millimeter rib. If they're a 12 gauge, it'll be an 8 millimeter rib. So it's kind of, and if we're waterfowling, chances are you're probably going to encounter more 12 gauge guns. But yeah, that Bird Buster is a sight you can carry with you. And I do. When I go out waterfowling or I go shooting or shotgunning, I always carry extra sights. And of course, I carry magnetic for the reason that we can get a size and get it right on their gun right there. So that Bird Buster, that's a great choice to have. And hey, things happen. If you had a screw attached sight on your gun, maybe you snag it in a bolt blind, or something, and you really tear it off of there, or bend it or break the fiber or something behind it. I'm sure you've never experienced any damaged equipment in the field.
No, none at all. Just all of it. None at all, but all of it. They are a necessity in my blind bag. Extras, my drawer system from deck to my truck, extra Hi-Vises. I swear by them. I have for so long though. I've heard so many comments in the past. Oh, I told this to Mr. Field. They just pay you to say that works. I'm like, look, I am taking the responsibility of taking a life. I don't take that for granted. I don't take it lightly. I truly don't. I want to be ethical. I want to be compassionate for the animals we pursue. I want to be respectful of what we're doing out there, whether I'm calling a coyote in at 9 feet, and we just did it Saturday last week, a triple with a shotgun. I want to respect that animal to the fullest extent of the word respect, have compassion for it, and dispatch it honorably and ethically and quick, no suffering. That's how I've always been taught to hunt. I've never been taught to disrespect an animal or say stuff like F a coyote. Coyotes are one of the so respectful in my upbringing of what they do and how they live and how they hunt and how adaptable they are. So when we do take the responsibility to be a hunter, I've never taken it lightly, Trevor, I'm just going out there and killing ducks. It's not just a pile to me. It's a lifestyle. It's a culture. It's a privilege. It's not an entitlement. We are not guaranteed of this privilege. And I want to make sure that we fly the flag and we have a good voice and showing people like, hey, in my opinion, there is a right way to be. You don't have to decoy every duck. If you're a pass shooter, okay, but I don't really get into shooting a duck at 70 or 80 yards. I want to hone my skill set to call them in and decoy them in and make the water look muddy and ripples on the water and make them get close and comfortable and have that really intimate encounter and shoot them dead in the decoys where their feet are up and the dog brings them back. And the Hi-Vis sight allows me to do that. So for somebody to say, oh, you're just being paid to say that, it's wrong. It's not the right mentality. We have a good voice and a good platform to show people, hey, the experience of shotgunning can be so much elevated by putting this sight on your gun, and here's why. That's all I've ever tried to do. Showing the culture, showing the fun, showing the compassion, the respect, everything that goes into duck camp and the duck hunt. I've tried to show that, and Hi-Vis has been a big part of that for over a decade. I thought it was a decade. Me and Phil had a little bit of a talk yesterday of like, it's been over a decade now. So it's not because you guys pay us or pay me to talk about Hi-Vis. It's that I would not take money just to tell somebody, oh yeah, this makes me a better duck hunter. I wouldn't do that. That'd be asinine to me. And I'm not that person. And it's not like I used Hi-Vis for 2 years and then said, no, I was just kidding. They're not paying me anymore. So don't use Hi-Vis. I've used Hi-Vis religiously on every hunt since I discovered the product back in 2008.
Yeah, it's an important distinction that as hunters, we are the premier conservation. Effectively for other people contribute to conservation, but we really truly care about the preservation and conservation of the animals. So we do want to be ethical, and we want to be successful too. And like say, if you're shooting coyotes, we are. Everything needs managed. That's part of conservation. We need to manage it, whether it's coyotes or snow geese. There's certainly plenty of, and you can't do it all with hunting either. But that's just part of our intimate relationship with the game, is that we can both appreciate them and conserve them, and we can also hunt them. But yeah, you are just like many others. We've had a lot of competition shooters on our Shotgun Pro staff over the years, and some are still on there, some are not. Some have been on the pro staff, left, come back, but most of them all still shoot our sight. And why do they shoot it? Because it is actually a benefit to them. You or I, we would not hunt with it. We would not use a shotgun shell, brand, or load that didn't kill effectively. It wouldn't matter how much we were paid or how much somebody paid you to use their ammunition. You wouldn't do it. So we like to hope that the people that we've worked with over the years and partner with certainly do use it because it's a benefit. And I know it is a benefit to me.
100%. I believe it. Any closing words, Mr. Trevor? Thank you so much for your time. Hi-Vis, light pipe technology. We do not shoot at coyotes or turkeys or ducks or geese or pheasants or chukar or any kind of upland bird, quail included, or a snow goose, or rough grouse, a blue grouse. They're all, we're out west. We got it all out here. We have a lot of opportunity out here, and I want to capitalize on being able to be the most ethical and best shotgunner that I possibly can be, and Hi-Vis adds to that. Trevor, thank you for coming on. Thank you for a great product. Thank you for the education, the instruction, and all the knowledge, and it's great to see your passion for taxidermy taken off. That mallard is about to land on your head.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me on. And if anyone has any interest in Hi-Vis sites or wants to know about them, give us a call. We're always more than happy to help people with products and answer any questions.
On Instagram at Hi-Vis Sites. You can find them all over the World Wide Web. You can see them exclusively on brand new episodes of the Foul Life TV, airing right now exclusively on the Outdoor Channel. Got a brand new episode coming up this week on Friday. I think we're going to be in the state of California chasing specs and mallards with the Godfather, the Il Padrino, Rocky Merlo, another friend and supporter of Hi-Vis. We can't wait to see our Hi-Vis family again. Again, any questions or inquiries about the podcast, info@thefoullife.com or info@thislifeaintforeverybody.com. Don't forget to check out our brand new podcast series, Where the Payment Ends: turkey hunting, predator hunting, big game hunting, ballistics, rifles, muzzleloaders, archery, shotgunning, you name it, we're going to talk about it. That podcast is hosted by my brothers Clinton Clay Belding, as well as our best friend Alex Crosby, the magician behind a rifle. The guy is an unbelievable marksman. You can see a lot of his shots on a lot of our social media, chasing those wily coyotes all across the West United States and other parts of Canada and America. I'm Chad Belding, your host of the Foul Eye Podcast. Again, this episode is brought to you by Gerber Gear and our friends at Hi-Vis in Laramie, Wyoming. Check them out and make your shotgunning experience the best that it can be. Tom, hit that button. This is Leith Lofton. This song is called, no, I got that one wrong. This song is by 2 AM Logic. It's called My Foul Life. Thank you all very much for subscribing to the podcast. Tell your friends and family. Be safe. God bless.